Okay, well, thank you all for being here. I just wanted to say that I appreciate this last year that we've been working on different things, people at different places and things. I do want to say that what we're doing here is not something I've seen around the world. Okay, it's something that I've sort of gleaned from things. So this is basically you're on a cutting edge of some things that are happening. We've been doing some of these things with some people in the class that I had. There's more people that want to get together and do what we've been talking about. So we're, I guess I'd say you're guinea pigs in a way. But it's not something that hasn't been bits and pieces I've seen in different places and put them together and try to make it biblical. I think it's been great. There's been a lot of people that have really gained a lot. So our workshops here on page 1, and don't get overwhelmed with all the pages. There's 6 pages, but the first 3 pages are basically just a review of what we've done and why we did it and what's going on here with the discipleship that we've been talking about. And then the last 3 pages are the main thing that I want to go through today. But let's see where we get to. So we'll probably have 3 different sessions, and we'll be taking a break between each one, a short break. And if you have any questions or something, that would be awesome. So the first workshop was something about a dessert. Do you remember what it was? Flan. You remember Victoria brought in her flan, and we had flan. But it was helping to learn relational discipleship skills and communication and connection. And workshop 2 was how to bring joy to people, how to bring joy to Jesus, how to bring joy to your neighbors or whoever, your other people, and how to bring joy to God, to yourself. And then today is the passing on this thriving experiential relationship. Now, everybody may have not been doing all this all the time. So I'd encourage you to really try to do this because it's really been helpful to a lot of people. Page 2, that was page 1. That went back pretty fast. Page 2 is just a review basically. But what I wanted to share with you, and you don't have to necessarily follow everything I wrote on here on these first 3 pages because I'm not going to cover everything. There's a lot of things here, and I don't want to overwhelm people. And maybe you're already overwhelmed by just seeing all the stuff written on here. I want to talk about, first of all, I'm calling this a new discipleship. And it's new because of some reasons I'm going to look at here in a little bit below on number 2 there, Roman numeral 2. But Roman numeral 1, I want to talk about the necessity of biblical discipleship. And for some, the term discipleship, since they've had bad experiences with it, is a bad word. It triggers even things. And even our neighbors have been triggered a lot because of some things that happened in the churches they were in. And I don't remember what church it was, but I think I mentioned, he told me the time that, just as an example, he said that the pastor came and told him, see, the Bible says you're supposed to do whatever I tell you. Okay, and so it was authoritarian, right? Okay, you're going to do what I tell you. And he told me about this one time when he got, his pastor told him that he wanted him to come over and mow his lawn. And if you remember that. And so he came over, and the lawn was like, 2 feet high or whatever. It was just a mess. And he gave him a push mower. He said, mow my lawn. It was like, But that was just one of the things he talked about. Some of the things that he had experienced in whatever type of discipleship they had was not good at all. Dietrich Bonhoeffer stated, however, that Christianity without discipleship is always Christianity without Christ. Think about that. Christianity without biblical discipleship, what God wants, is Christianity without Christ. And so if you have a discipleship that you're trying to do, even in a church that's not biblical, it's going to be like without Christ. So it's so important to really find out what Jesus wants. And discipleship is simply helping one another become like Jesus and how to love one another. That's just basically what it is. But we need help. I need help. Everybody needs help to become more like Jesus. Discipleship must be infused with love and respect for Christ. And I want to read, and I didn't put this in your notes, but John 13:34 is probably a good thing to put down there. John 13:34. See if I can find it in my big Bible here. You know, when you got large print, you have a lot more pages. So it takes a lot longer to find. What's that?
Appreciate the large print.
Oh, I do. Especially my eyes are getting worse, so it's really good. Yes, thank you, Angela. That was, Andrea, that was great. Well, I got to find the right verse too. Chapter 13. Oh, I'm in 12. 34. It says, "A new command," Jesus said, "I give to you. Love one another." That's a new command? Well, here's what's new. "As I have loved you, so you should love one another." The Old Testament said, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength," in Deuteronomy and other places. But Jesus says, "As I have loved you, so you should love one another." That's why we need to become like Jesus. We need to love like Jesus did. By this will everyone know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another. So, and you remember, if I've taught before about the idea of knowing in the Bible. That has the idea of experience. So you could translate this, by this everyone will experience that you're my disciples if you have love for one another. And so the whole idea is loving like Jesus so that they can experience his disciples' love, which is really Jesus' love as the Holy Spirit is working through them, through us. And so that's the whole goal of everything, of becoming a discipleship, is to try to do that. So, does that make sense? It's pretty simple, but I want to make sure that we're doing what God wants us to do. It's not discipleship to other people. Let's look at, excuse me, let's look at Roman number 2. New discipleship, in contrast to what some have experienced in the past, is helping people to become like Jesus or experience Jesus through relationships that involve healthy, safe, joy-filled experience rather than authoritarian, fearful environment. It's so important, and there are discipling groups that use fear. Now, if you don't do what I say, you're going to hell or whatever. You know, it's not biblical. And so what we want to do is to help us become Christians in the real meaning of the word, which is a little Christ. You're letting Christian is sort of a Christ small, and it means a little Christ. And so basically, as you let the Holy Spirit live through you and you communicate like Jesus did to other people, you become little Christ, you become little Jesuses to them. It's not you, it's Jesus through you. But in order for this to happen, we have to have a healthy, safe biblical discipleship. Healthy and safe. It's got to be what Jesus wanted. So first of all, I had down here, number 1 under B there in the middle of the page, discipleship to Jesus. In other words, becoming like him, not other persons. I remember it sometimes, it was interesting, I was with a group in Milwaukee that at one point, they wanted you to do everything just exactly like the leader. You had to, in fact, Linda had to smile like they wanted her to, or she got in trouble. And she got in trouble because she wasn't smiling right. And they wanted you to do everything. It was a cookie cutter, yeah, maybe it's cookie cutter approach. And it was not good, because we became more emphasized more us becoming like a person than necessarily like Jesus. And we were off base there. And so it wasn't wrong. It's not wrong to try to imitate what some people do if they're doing it for Jesus, but you also have to have a mindset that, hey, they're not perfect, and I don't have to imitate what they don't do right. Okay? But that means I have to have a thinking mind. I have to have a mind trained by Jesus, a mind of Christ, so that I can discern that. And I used to filter things. Now, way back in those days, they said, don't filter. Just do what you're told. Well, that's not biblical either. So we have to train ourselves to let Jesus filter things of what people may tell us to do. We should respect our leaders and things and people that are older us in Christ, but we got to be able to say no to ungodliness. Number 2, discipleship must happen in a safe, and I have down here, surrendered to Jesus agendas. In other words, if you have discipleship between people and they're not surrendered to Jesus' agenda, it's going to have some issues, because they're going to try to have you do what they want you to do, not what God necessarily. We're not perfect at it, but that should be our beginning approach. That makes it a safe, one of the things that makes it safer. Number 3, discipleship must equip people for relational communication and connection with each other. It equips us to love one another and bring joy to each other. If it doesn't, then we're not really having a good relationship. Would you agree? If there's not joy in a relationship, is it a good relationship? That doesn't mean there can't be some challenges, but you want that to be a transformational relationship where there's more joy all the time. Then number 4 is really what I think what we've been doing with the Flan Joy is an attempt to raise our EQ, not IQ. I don't know if you can raise IQs, can you? Maybe it'd be good. I'd like to have my IQ. Anyway, but you all of us can have our EQs, emotional quotient, emotional intelligence raised. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But it's all about relationship. And the Bible basically is all about relationship. And so Jesus is all about relationship. That's what love is, all about relationship. And so when we do flan and we do the joy thing, we're learning skills in raising our EQ. I crossed out the IQ because I had put IQ down there, if you see a number 5. It's not your EQ, it's your EQ, not your IQ. What is emotional intelligence? Emotional intelligence is the ability to manage both your own emotions. We talked about Cain not being able to do that. We talked about how Jesus was able to do that in the garden. But it's able to manage your own emotions and understand the emotions of other people around you. And we talked about how we should be listening for emotions. Okay? Because it's going to help us to be able to relate to people. It's going to help us connect with people when we talk about those things. And in this definition, they said that there's 5 key elements to, they say EI, emotional intelligence, self-awareness, which is what we talk about our feelings, right? In the flan part, F is feelings. It helps us to be aware what's going on inside me. I mean, in the past, I would just get all upset about something. I'm all upset. What happened? I didn't know what was going on, But whenever I was able to sit back and other people could help me see what was going on, then I was more able to manage those. And as a result, it made my relationships better. I used to have all kinds of things about pride. I used to smile at people, not knowing it. And if what? It was a bad smile, Linda knows. And so, but until people could help me see that, I wasn't convicted that I needed to change it. And it beat Linda down, it beat all kinds of people. I didn't know anything. What's wrong with these people? Anyway, they said, well, you were smiling. No, I wasn't. Really? No, come on. What are you talking about? Well, I didn't have a good EI. Self-awareness, self-regulation, Okay, self-control. These are all things biblical. Motivation. Part of motivation is, well, what do I want to do with my emotions? Do emotional state? Am I going to change it so I can be a blessing to other people? Empathy is so important. If I'm just about myself, I don't usually have much empathy for people. Get off my case. I don't want you around. Get out of here. Those type of things, and those feelings can come up, but we need to be able to regulate those. And social skills, how we relate to people. All of us have, especially, I didn't have much social skills when Linda and I were dating. I was just out with the sheep. I didn't know what was going on. Took a shower maybe twice a week. And Linda finally had to tell me, she didn't say this, but you stink. You need to take a shower more. She didn't say it that way. So there were some social skills I needed to learn. I didn't learn it from my sheep. They never took a bath. So it was things that I needed to learn to become more sociable with other people. And so by way of review, we're doing really good, I think, time-wise. By way of review, I want to just go over what we went through on the first and second thing. Yes?
Can we ask questions along the way?
You sure can. Raise your arm. Did you have a question?
No.
Oh, I thought you were volunteering. Oh, okay.
So I have a question about emotional intelligence or emotional IQ.
Okay.
So how do you back up when you unintentionally triggered somebody with something you said? How
How do you fix it?
do you do the moon dance out of that?
I think you have to. How did you find out that you knew that you triggered them?
I mean, you can tell sometimes by
Okay.
expressions,
Okay.
they shut down,
Okay.
or they believe start crying,
Oh, okay. Okay.
things like that, or even tell you it's true.
Okay. So how would you answer him? Anybody here? He's got a lot of emotional intelligence here. What would you do? Okay.
You tell them you're sorry and I
Oh.
didn't mean it the way that I said it.
One of the biggest things to do, I think, is along this line is you realized it, right? So you ask, oh, I see, I must have said something that triggered you or something. Can you help me know what you're feeling? I'm sorry, whatever it is. And so you start a dialogue. Start with the flawn thing. Start with talking about their feelings. What happened? I mean, I feel sorry. I didn't realize I was going to do that. And so you talk to them about it. Flawn, then you listen. So what are they doing? What's going on? Then you tune with them. Wow, I'm really sorry. I didn't mean to do that. What do you need? All these things can be worked, I think, in that way. Is that helpful? Okay. But that means you have a lot of emotional intelligence when you just see it. You see it on their face. Well, if they hit you like Clay said or slap you, yeah, it's pretty easy to figure out somewhere. But if you can just be aware of the countenance falling, that's what Cain didn't understand. That's what God did understand when he saw him. It's, Cain, your face is falling, your countenance is falling. And so God went in and asked, he said, hey, Satan is trying to get you, but you must conquer it, you must manage it. And we don't know as much as God did, but we can talk to the person about it.
I think some of the both exactly and some of the things that triggered is that, and what happened in my experience is people try to fix me.
Yeah.
To fix me because they didn't think that I was
You're defective.
I was defective.
Okay.
And I think that goes back to that relationship thing.
Yes.
The best discipling I had was in the people I trusted and I had a relationship with.
Exactly. Yeah.
And people who try to fix me, it was like,
Yeah. What did they do to try to fix you, for example?
what did they do to try to fix me?
Yeah.
mostly, it was, so one of the things, I did filter.
You filtered too. Shame on you. No.
I filtered, and so I would question why, it's because
Yeah.
I'm different than you. So a lot of times there was that was looked at as rebellion,
Yes.
and
Was looked at a rebellion. Yeah.
and that, I was even with undiscipled
Yes.
because, just remember leaders meeting where somebody said, "No, we'll disciple ourselves."
Okay.
Undiscipled.
Okay.
But anyway, it's that relationship.
Yeah.
Is key.
Yeah.
To it is being able to have the kind of relationship that meets your face
Yeah.
and say,
Yeah.
"I'm sorry," and flan. Sometimes
Yeah.
flan comes naturally.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's
Yeah. Yeah. And that's one of the key things about is people try to fix you without your permission.
Or it didn't need fixed.
Or maybe you didn't need fix. Yeah. Either way. Yeah.
There's land. I had a team at work called the Land of Broken Toys.
Land of broken toys. Okay.
Broken toys.
Okay.
They would send in all the people that they couldn't work with.
Okay. Yeah.
And it was the best team in my eyes.
Yeah.
They knew they were broken.
Yeah. Well, it's one of the reasons during flan we have people don't give advice until they're wanting something, and you're listening to them. You're trying to attune with them where they're at, not try to fix them.
Yeah, if I can just tag on next, I think this is so important, and I think we're learning more and more just the importance of asking questions and listening, and it is so deeply ingrained in many of us who've been around a while.
Yes.
To explain or to talk over or to fix, and so it's really hard to change. And we're trying to do this with our son. We're trying to do it with each other.
Yeah.
Of like when you do feel like someone has a reaction to something you said, it is so tempting to defend yourself.
Yeah.
Like either
Yeah.
whether you're prideful and think, well, I'm right and you're wrong,
Yeah.
I don't understand you, or I'm so embarrassed that I just did something that hurt you, so I want to talk over it, and explain it. And it's I'm learning how hard it is to just say, obviously I'm sorry, but then like, can you tell me more about what you're feeling, because I don't understand. I didn't mean to do that, but
Yes.
obviously I said something that tricked you in a bad way, and I need to understand you more, where you're coming from. And that is kind of game changing.
It is.
Yeah.
One of my students, I was training people. What I do is I go through this with them, and then I give them an assignment to go out and find 4 other people they can do this with for about 4 or 5, 6 weeks or 7 or 8, just because it takes time. And this guy that I was helping in Africa told me he travels all around as a teacher, and so he's got some people, I think in Zambia or someplace, and he said he was teaching this, and they said, "This is totally hard. How can I do this?" And then another person I saw on TV that was doing a check-in on a video, and they're one of the leaders of a church, one of our churches, and he said, after they told him about this, he says, "This is a new teaching, because we were taught wrong, and I think the world teaches you wrong, and so as a result, we harm people, and we don't really develop relationships. We push them away." And but I think this is key. If we can help people, our young people, our older people, whoever, learn how to do this in a great way, it's going to have an impact on the world. I'm just convinced. I mean, I just had I don't have my phone. I did this with a group of people about last week, and so then I talked to the leader. He's one of our graduates of our school, and he said, I asked him, what was their response? He said they were just blown away. They're speechless, because this isn't taught that much. I mean, I'm not sure it's totally unique, but it's not in a discipleship type of setting. So thank you for your responses. I don't have all the answers, but if we can use the flan as a way to do that. I've even started using it as a verb, to flan somebody. But that doesn't sound very good. So I say, engage in flan with somebody. And it doesn't have to be that. Your check-in is a way to learn it. And it's good to have that check-in every so often because it helps your relationship. And it reminds you of how to do things. It's really good. We're doing that with Max and Alyssa right now about every Wednesday or so. Just we modify it. It doesn't have to be formal. I mean, you can talk to your neighbor and just be listening to them. That's what we did with our neighbor, and they're going through so much stuff. It's just incredible. Anyway, just trying to listen to them, and they respond. And he's been writing me notes. He texts me and he says, well, I called your brother, but I shouldn't do that because the churches of Christ don't do that. They think it's odd because it's not right because no one's a Christian except the people in the churches of Christ. I said, well, we're not a traditional Church of Christ background, so we don't have a problem with it. So, but it's allowing him to have a safe place where he can come and ask me questions or talk about things, even apologize. I didn't take any offense anyway, and I had to look back on where he was typing it, and to find out, he did say that. Well, it didn't bother me any. It wasn't. So it's not the doctrinal things that is important. Our doctrine is not going to be perfect. I mean, that's important, but it's the relationship that's even more important. So let me just go through flan check-in a second, and we'll take a break here. And then I'm going to ask Reggie to come up in a second because we've been doing that too. Where'd he go? He went where? Okay, well, I'm not ready for him yet anyway. Workshop number one, we went through flan. Skills learned through the vehicle of check-in. Check-in was a vehicle to learn these skills that you can use in check-in or can use in any type or any part of them in your life. It's part of our EQ being raised. Safety was so important, and not just in formal check-in, but in any type of use of the flan skills. Ground rules for check-ins have to be safe. There's confidentiality. Anyone can pass at any stage in the check-in. They don't have to share. Time limitations are, if needed, are put for people. Some people don't know when they're overwhelming people, and they talk and talk and talk and talk and talk and talk and talk, and the other people get overwhelmed. And so we have to train them. Okay, let's slow down here. Let's give other people a chance. Let's not overwhelm them with what we're feeling or what we're doing. And so there's some control. There's a place for people just to vent. I mean, the guy next door, I was letting him talk. He was going through all this stuff. We talked probably an hour. I said, okay. He said, well, nobody listens to me. Wow, I didn't believe you listened. Well, anyway, it was just because of these skills. But for flan, and not giving advice unless the person asks for it. That doesn't mean that you can't give advice. Sometimes outside of the flan idea, some people, it may save their life. Don't drive that car when it looks like this. When it's got, it's got the wheels about to fall off or something. Okay. Rich.
I just see the note underneath that says this check-in idea is adapted from LK10.
Yeah. So that's one of the places where we were trained. It's called Luke 10. Okay. And Luke 10 is lk10.org. And what it is they have implemented the check-in. They've sort of more perfected it. We're modifying it some, but and so we were trained in how to do the check-in with them who actually are doing it all over the world with other groups. So that's one of the things. And the other thing, if you look under the joy thing, you'll see another footnote, which is from lifemodelworks.org. And we were trained in that as well to try to figure out, okay, what are some of the brain skills? How does your brain function so that you can bring joy to people and bring joy to yourself? And so we're bringing in some scientific stuff as well, but it's not anti-biblical. I think it just helps it. Flan basics, where feelings are expressed, is F. L is listening actively. A is attuning, not correcting, not fixing, and asking gentle, curious questions. Not just curious questions, but gentle, curious. You got to be able to ask it in a way that the person doesn't feel condemned or doesn't feel like you're judging them. all these type of things. It's got to be so neutral, and not just neutral, but loving back to them. And then need is ask for needs. This is so important. And as we go along, we're seeing that more and more. One of my students in New York, he learned this when we were going through our class last semester. And I asked him, what did you get the most out of? He said, the most impacting thing for me was the needs. He used to have all these fights with his wife. And then he started asking her, well, what do you need? Instead of fighting. And he says it's transformed their life. And they're getting along better, it sounds like, and they were able to talk. Well, what do you need? Just that simple question.
So I can ask a question about that, because this has come up in our small group before, where we've done check-in.
Okay.
And when someone shares and they say, what do you need? I think a lot of times we feel like, I don't know what I need.
Yeah, that's good.
Is there like a more clarifying question than that?
Yes, there's about 5 that you can have them answer. But it's not uncommon, because the whole idea of what do you need is not for me to solve it, but you to interact with God to help him, and we'll help you, but help him show you what you need. I was just with this lady on another check-in, this group that I was doing, and we went through all this stuff. She was struggling with her son, and he's about, I don't know, maybe 20. He's doing all these things she didn't want him to do, and just she didn't know what to do about it, all this stuff. So she was just talking and talking. So I asked her, what she need? I need to find him a mentor his age that he can get along with. I mean, that hadn't even come up, but I think God was helping her see what she needed. And so some of the things you can suggest they say, there's actually 5 if I can remember them all. One is, I don't need anything. I just feel like thank you that you're listening, whatever. I just needed to talk. I don't need anything. Second thing would be, I would like to have some prayer. And so then you'd ask them, well, who do you want to pray? You want to pray right now? For anybody here in the group, you would like to ask to pray for you? What would you like to do? Put it on, they're in control, okay? Or would you want us just to pray on our own prayer times, later on? So that's fine too. Another thing would be, and this is more of a new one, would be, can you tell me a story of how you dealt with this? Whatever the situation might be. Can you tell me a story of how you overcame this, or what helped you in this situation if you had this type of situation that I'm struggling with right now? And there's 2 more. One is, I would like for us all to just take a minute, there's 60 seconds here, and just bow our heads and ask Jesus if there's anything he wants to put on our heart, or maybe he already has put on our heart, that you can share with me. And we've had some great things come out of that too, where people just bow their heads and they just sort of listen to God and see if he puts something on their heart. It might be a word, it might be a scripture, it might be a feeling, it might be a picture, things like that. And we've had some people that it's really been helpful. And it's interesting when you see these things coming from different angles of the same thing. It's almost like the Spirit is working to communicate this. And Linda, what's the last one? What is it? Oh yeah, the last one is that. Okay, I'd like to have some advice. Okay, now if you felt like you need to give advice, there's your open door. Do it with love and kindness. But that's what you would do. So, does that help? Okay. Use of flan. Flan must be experienced and not just intellectually taught. That's why I'm encouraging everyone to do this. You need to do it. You can talk about it. You got to have the experience, or you don't get close to the person like you would. It's an experience of relationship. Flan skills initially are to be learned through, can be learned through check-in, and then be expanded in daily lifestyle for all relational situations. Just think if everyone had the raised EQ here to be able to do all this, I think you're going to get rid of a lot of conflict. At least it won't be immediate, but it's going to happen. And you'll be able to relate to the other person. I mean, you're asking what they need, not necessarily what they need from you. We need to make that clarified, because you don't say, what do you need from me? Because you may not be able to fill that need. But there may be somebody else in the group that can. Okay, so I want Reggie to come up, if he doesn't mind, for a couple minutes here and share we've been doing flan here a little bit, and I'll ask him to share what he experienced and some good things that he's come up with. Awesome. And he hasn't told me what he's going to say, so.
Don't filter.
Thank you.
Thanks. How's it going, everybody? So I'm here to talk about kind of just my experience with flan and how I've been practicing that with a couple of the other disciples. So Glenn has actually been teaching me and helping me through how to go about using flan with other disciples and kind of just how to talk to each other. And so we've been kind of doing some Zooms, meeting together, and it's been really helpful. And recently I brought it to some of the guys I live with, as well as Carter and Landon, and we had this big long session of just like getting deep with each other for like hours. And after that, I think everybody kind of felt just listened to, relieved, like, wow, I didn't know I had that on my chest, and I didn't know I needed to get that off my chest, right? And I feel like after that experience, we all kind of felt a little bit closer together. At least I know that I felt a little bit closer to the rest of the guys. I didn't know what they were going through. They didn't know what I was going through. It's crazy to like live with 3 other people and not know a single thing that's going through their lives. And it was just a wonderful time to be able to sit down and talk and listen to each other. And so I've also done another session after that with some of the guys, Landon, Carter, and Elliot, and we got together yesterday, right? Yeah, we got together yesterday and did a session, and just kind of like general takeaways from the impact that it's had on all of us. I feel what I've taken away is just that it's powerful to be listened to. A lot of times in our kind of cultural, world, we get used to like asking each other whenever we see each other briefly, hey, how are you doing? But we don't actually expect you to I don't expect you to sit there and tell me for 15 minutes how you've been doing. I'm just like kind of saying hi, right? But I think we need to get better at communicating with each other and asking each other like, hey, how have you been? Like, how's life? I think it's often for us to kind of suffer in silence. It's oftentimes we feel like we don't want to burden each other with what's going on in our lives. I don't want to feel like I'm wasting someone's time or annoying someone with how, I'm sitting there and talking for hours, but maybe like I really need somebody. Maybe I've been praying to God, hey, God, take this off my shoulders, and his answer is the ears of somebody else. Right. And that's just been something that I've seen with this practice and just with getting together with the rest of the guys. That's something that I've been feeling, just being listened to. And I've also felt this joy of just getting together and talking about how we feel and just kind of working together, working within each other's lives, knowing each other's struggles and being able to be there for each other. And that's pretty much how flan's been impacting me. And I'm really excited to keep doing it with the rest of the guys and bring it towards campus and kind of get deeper with them and get deeper with the rest of you guys.
Awesome. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Question?
Absolutely.
Oh, sorry.
So, at any time during your sessions,
Mhm.
did you feel like, or I'll ask anybody that was in your session, did you feel like anybody was trying to fix you?
I don't think so. No. Kind of something we've been trying to be a little bit more formal with it, and I think as we try to understand how to do this together, that we've definitely been good about not trying to fix each other, not trying to give unsolicited advice, and I think that's definitely helped, because I feel like that's a huge problem with sharing your feelings with anybody, is just feeling like, I'm going to talk about how I'm feeling, but then the person's like, they've got all these problems, let me fix them. They need to be fixed, right? It makes you feel not listened to. I think we've done a really good job about just listening to each other and being respectful of each other and asking each other, hey, do you need advice? Like, no? Okay. Well, thank you for sharing. But yeah, I'd say we've done a pretty good job of just being mindful of that. Yeah.
Good job.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Thank Thank you, everybody.
Excuse me. I got too many allergies. Okay. So I've only been getting with Reggie the first time we got together was in December.
Yeah.
And then we didn't do anything over break, and then we just got other times. So this is something that can be learned pretty quick, and it can be spread to the rest of the group, and it's going to be, I think, what we're going to talk about today in a minute is how you can use it to the people not in the group, okay? Because it's how to spread God's love. But let me just look workshop number 2. We got to take a break here. Was about joy. In addition to flawn, we practice giving and receiving joy. And you know, Jesus, the angels said, "I bring you great tidings of." Bring you what? Tidings of great joy, which shall be to all the people. And so, I want to look at joy, and we were bringing in some of the brain science stuff here, and applying it to the biblical things. How to bring joy to Jesus? Well, there's more joy in heaven, more angels rejoicing with one person who repents, right? So there's obedience. There's a repentance. It's not a bad word. It's a way to bring joy to Jesus, joy to God. Man, somebody is actually listening to me, God might say. Wow, you know, I see them change. This is incredible. I mean, it affects God. There's joy to others. We talked about how we bring joy to others when we help them to feel that we're glad to be with them. I want to be here with you, even though sometimes it's hard, you know, you might say, but you don't say that. You try to manage those emotions. Say, I'm glad to be with you. And you bring a glad presence. Another thing we talked about, and Jesus was, for the joy set before him, he endured the cross. He had a glad presence, even though he's going to suffer. You have greeting one another in Romans 16, just a whole thing about greeting one another. Well, it's a way to bring joy. When people know that you like to be with them and you say hello to them, rather than just walking by, or sneering at them or something, or just being blank. There's something about saying hello. That's why we really encourage it in church. You know, go greet somebody. It's going to encourage them. Then there's also good eye contact, having relational circuits on, and not overwhelming them, learning what causes people to be overwhelmed. And so then there's also joy to yourself. If you can't experience peace, it's kind of hard for you to give peace to other people. We talked about taking a deep breath. We talked about this tapping thing that causes people to, you know, your some of your nervous system there could help calm that. Practicing gratitude. You know, like in Philippians 4:8, I think. It talks about being grateful. It changes us. It changes the other person. If you come to talk to somebody and all you want to say is, you know, just a criticism, instead of saying like Max, you shouldn't put that plate on the table. It's empty. It should be taking it to the trash. What's wrong with you? You know, rather than saying, Max, I love your hat. You know, it's really great. Thank you for being here and everything. It says, hey, can you take that plate over the... There's a way you approach people, and you don't even have to tell him that. He'd probably do it anyway. But anyway, it's just the idea of how you relate to people. It's emotional intelligence. It's how you come across like Jesus did. I mean, the woman at the well, he could have really condemned her. Says, you terrible, worst person in the world, been married 4 times, and now the 5th person you're married to is not your husband. Get out of here, you stink. You know, he could have really come down on her, but he didn't. He talked to her. He helped her to see that he was concerned about her. He wanted to know more about her. He already knew, but he wanted her to express what about herself. So anyway, practicing joy, flawn joy is what I call a new discipleship, where you got feelings, listening, attuning, and needs. You develop this relationship. And then you also learn how to give that person joy and give others joy and give Jesus joy. And So anyway, I want to stop here for a few minutes, let people stretch a little bit. Okay, workshop number 3 is what we're doing today, which we had a good discussion. I really appreciate your discussion. If anybody wants to be trained in how to do these things, Linda and I know, and we can work with you. If there's anybody in the campus for the women, we haven't done anything with the women. If you're interested, Bree, let me know. So we'll work on that too. So passing it on, and what I wanted to do is to talk about this because I think in the past we've jumped to the Great Commission, make disciples of all nations. Just go out and knock on doors, which is not bad. Go out and grab somebody and say, you want to come to church? Those things aren't necessarily bad, but there's a relational component that I think needs to be developed, not always, but sometime during that period, during that time of your relationship with people, that will help them get to know Jesus better. Flaunt joy, I think, is a joyful relational way to get to fulfill the 2 greatest commandments. Does anyone know what they are? Right. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength, and your neighbor as yourself. This is a way to begin to do that. I mean, there's other things where we hopefully have some more workshops where we bring in some other things, but this is a way to help people. Matthew 22:34-40. It's all about love. So it's a way to love people if we practice this like we've talked about. And this will create what I call a Hesed community. And I preached on that. How many were there when I preached on spit on people? Whatever. Hesed, So we have that on our website, or on our Vimeo. So if you want to listen to that, go ahead and ask Max. He can tell you, I guess. So Hesed is the word in the Old Testament, the Hebrew word for loving kindness. It's like it's like giving a kiss from God. He's giving you a blessing. He's there with you. He wants to bring the best for you. He's going to be kind to you. He's going to love you. He cares about you. And if we can develop through using this discipleship that everybody's involved in that, or most everybody, we're going to create a more Hesed community. I think we've got a lot of Hesed here already, but it's going to create a better Hesed community where Christ's body, the church, is practicing this loving kindness to each other and to the world. I think I've seen some of the prayer time has also been helping. If you think about it, at least my experience a couple weeks ago, I wasn't here this last week, but when we got together at church, everybody seemed like they were greeting each other, coming around and talking to each other, and Max got up there and said, hey, we got to start. No one was listening. But it was this type of care. People really cared about each other. That's why we encourage all the things that we've been doing with Flaunt and Joy, as well as just praying with one another. It just creates this unity, community. And you have this little thing that says Hesed in the middle there, that little diagram where it involves faithfulness, loyalty, covenant-keeping, truth, tender mercy, kindness, long-suffering. All these are relational things. So it's really about relationship. But Flaunt Joy then can be a vehicle to fulfill the greatest commandments, which are then in turn a vehicle to fulfill the Great Commission in Matthew 28, not 29. Does that say 29? Well, that'll be a new chapter in the Bible. Matthew 28. So, and you won't, Matthew 28, it says, Jesus said, go make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, teaching them to obey everything I've commanded to you. And behold, I'll be with you always to the end of the world, end of the age. And so sometimes we jump completely to that, I think, and we don't try to cultivate the relational component of that. And so it becomes more of a transaction. So you go out and, you would go to the store, you buy something, you pay the money or you pay the machine, whatever it is, or swipe your card and what pops out of the machine? Your receipt, right? And so Christianity has become something like that, where you just go and You just say, I believe in Jesus. I'll pray him into my heart, or I'll just get baptized, whatever. And the receipt pops out. It's not that way. If there's no relationship involved, I mean, I don't know the cashier from Adam and Eve, right? I may get mad at the machine even, but it's not a relationship that between people. And so we need that relational component, and that's what Jesus meant when he said, go make disciples. He didn't just, he chose his own disciples, but he also went out and made other disciples, but it involved his relationship with them. It was more than just, believe in Jesus, which is, you need that, but it was more than just that. So I want to talk about, Flaw and Joy can be a vehicle, discipleship vehicle, to fulfill the Great Commandments as well, that will then fulfill the Great Commission. And so here's how it might happen. And this is for people that are outside the church, people that are non-Christians, okay? Whatever that may be. Not that there's not Christians out there besides us. I'm just saying people outside. I've got some steps on how you might pass this on. Number one is working with God to have your attachment light on. Attachment light sounds like you're going to attach, right? How do you attach to a light? Well, screw the light bulb in, I guess. But no, what you're going to do is you're going to try to be attachable. You're going to try to let Jesus transform you such that people want to attach to you relationally, okay? And you're walking around, you're doing things, your light is on. People say, oh, they're inviting me to be part of their life. It's part of okay, because there's other things you do that you're saying, I don't want you as part of my life. Or they would say, I wouldn't want to be part of their life. So we're going to look at those two things. Step one is about how do you have attachment light on? And because you're going to approach people, they're going to approach you, you're going to have interactions. And the more you can have that attachment on, the more apt you're going to be able to be a blessing to them and to share Jesus with them. Attachment light is off when your arms are folded looking back. Now, that isn't always the case. I used to say, well, I didn't mean anything by that. And some people said, well, yeah, but other people may think you mean that. So I've tried not to cross my arms as much. Even though I like my arms sitting right there on my stomach, just holds it up, whatever. And don't be distracted. If you're distracted, they're trying to talk to you, or you try to focus on them. Looking at your watch or phone, I gotta go. They feel like you don't want to listen to it. Or you're watching your phone, back and forth, trying to talk. You can't. Eyes averted, you're looking up at the stars, you're looking over sideways, you're not really engaging with them. So if you're doing that, your attachment light's not on. People don't feel like you want to be attached. They don't really care about me. Why should I talk to them anymore? Fidgeting. Maybe you're drawing pictures, whatever. Non-synchronized communication. Yes.
Just about the time. Sometimes I want to be open, but I do have a time limit.
Right.
And so what's a healthy way to communicate that?
Like if you
You want to listen, but I truly only have 15 minutes.
Okay, the question is, you want to listen, but you only have a few minutes. How should you handle that? I think you need to tell them you really appreciate that. I've got this I got to do. Can we talk a little later? Make another appointment of some type, and be very sensitive, because maybe something to them is kind of devastating that they need to talk about. So you may have to weigh what you're doing too, and see if this is more important than what you were going to do. But I think it should be totally fine with people if you say, I've got this, I've really got to go. I would love to talk to you more. Can we do it in so time? Is that helpful?
I think so. I guess my other question then with that is, I have found that sometimes some people require a lot of talking, or can be a little monopolizing on
Yes. Yes.
and energy. So I'm not sure how you balance that.
Yeah, some people require a lot of time, and they can talk forever, and you just don't have the time. Do you have something,
So,
Rich?
I was thinking the same thing, you know, it's, people require a really, and have a lot of things to say.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's when I need to pray for patience and just that ability to listen.
Yeah.
And sometimes my attachment light can go off.
Yeah.
I'm
Yes.
trying to,
Yeah. Rich is saying you need to.
but again, how do you do that, or is that just something that my character, my emotional
Yeah.
intelligence needs to work on?
Yes, and Rich was saying, you need to ask yourself, is it your emotional intelligence need to be worked on, or is it something you need to change, or is it something else? I think you have to ask those questions. You know, is it me, or is it them, or is it both, or how can I be of help? That's why in a flawn check-in, we limit people about how long they can talk. So you might want to just say, well, I've got this amount of time, and try to help them to focus so that it's difficult. I know that's a difficult thing. I mean, I get on the phone with some people that want to talk and talk and talk and talk. And Linda and I say, I don't want to get that phone call again from people over in Denver. And it's like, how long should I talk? And I need to learn that too, Mandy. I don't think you're in the only boat, but somehow I need to be able to communicate with them. Yeah, they need to be more succinct, and they need to be able to learn how to manage their emotions so they don't overwhelm people. And so maybe that's something we could do, is have a lesson on overwhelm, and say, hey, would you be open to this, to maybe.
I have a friend that she'll, like when we call or she calls, like she'll just say, hey, is this a good time? And I love that. Like I really, like it just opens up like,
Yes.
yes, I'm in the middle of this, but I have this much time, is that okay?
Yes.
And so I feel like that's really helpful. And I want to do that to other people. Like,
Yes.
is this a good time? Do you have a moment?
Yes. Yeah, asking, is this a good time? Do you have a moment to talk or not? I think that would be good if we could train our people. That's part of emotional intelligence, being aware of other people's feelings and where they're at. So we ought to train each other to do that. I think that's a great suggestion. And we could train the other people, say, I'd really feel, I don't know, it's really a hard thing to train, but you could say, you might have some type of training them to say, well, maybe we need to have a class on emotional intelligence they could take and say, this is what you should say. I'm not sure how you want to communicate that, but.
You don't want to offend them either.
No, you don't. That's what's difficult.
That's hard.
But if you are doing a flan with them, they know that, and you end up doing this on a controlled, you can teach them, okay? You can teach them, okay, we've got a limited amount of time here.
What if you're at church and you're greeting people and you're trying to
And think
greet
about
the next
that.
person?
Yeah, well,
I mean,
yeah. Those are difficult things, but you're greeting people, so your responsibility to say hello, not necessarily to have a 15-minute conversation. So if they want to talk more, you can say, hey, can we talk after service or something? Those would be a possibility. Max, you had a question or a statement?
Yeah, I think maybe you bring up a really good point, which is I can feel like I wasn't planning on this conversation, and so therefore I only have so much time, or I kind of feel just drained, and I'm like, I feel like I only have emotionally I can give you about this much time. I don't really want to explain that in the moment.
Yeah.
I kind of want to, I think it's okay to say, hey, I can give you about 15 minutes. And I'm saying, this is off the cuff. I don't do this, but maybe I can start doing this. Do you think this would be appropriate to say, hey, I've got 15 minutes. Do you feel like you can get to the heart of the matter in 15 minutes?
Yeah.
Or should we find another time? Because then I feel like,
Yeah.
That's
I think you have to be careful how you'd say that, because.
sometimes people they'll give all these details, right? And they don't get to what they actually
Yeah,
want to talk about. I'm
yeah.
like, well, I gotta go here.
And what's important there is there may be something else underneath that.
Sure.
And listen to the emotions, and if we can get to that and try to help them figure out what their emotions are, then it might help that out. Some people need to
But if
talk
you
about it.
start, you have to do that in like a regulatory thing. You just can't, like, you can start it, but you have to regulate it each time in a certain way to like build that relationship. You're like, oh, Max is only gonna have 10 minutes, so I better get to the heart of it. Like, you can build that, nurture that relationship in a certain way, but it's hard to get there.
Yeah.
Where you're saying, give me your heart, but give me only 10 minutes.
Yeah.
You can't like, oh, let me pull it out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you need those times that are more substantive, I guess. If you take the time.
But if they can do that, like, cause there's times that me and my dad can sit down, and we get hash it out before dinner starts, like a business. Like, you have the business before dinner,
Yeah.
like, so you can have dinner.
Right. I guess I'm thinking more of those unexpected, like, surprise, this person needs.
Yeah.
Like, if it's a planned time, like, yeah, let's take an hour and a half, 2 hours.
Yeah.
Let's be deep, you know, but, I don't know.
Yeah,
If you're
there.
able to do that, after a while, say, here's my heart, real quick.
Yeah.
And the other person says, here, oh, he gave me his heart real quick, I need to give it back to him. Because you have to give it back to him within 10 minutes too, so that's 20 minutes already spent instead of 15.
I think as you go along, if the more you have gooder relationship, you'll be able to do more things like that. But yeah, that's that. And you're right, Clay. I think we have to train people about, you know, our situation, so they're sensitive to that. It can't be just their way, but it's a difficult one. But I think the more we do, if we would do flaunt joy with each other, do the check-in, and these are people that can do this, it will hopefully train them to be able to do that in a good way to do that. But yeah, those are difficult things. Okay, let's look here at. Thank you for all you're saying there. Let's see, all this conversation. Number 7 on page 5 is interrupting. It's your attachment light is not on. You're always wanting to get your word in. You know, showing contempt or disgust or dismissive or showing anger. You know, how dare you come and ask me? And it's not, your light's not on. Not responding to questions or not listening. We've talked about that a little bit. Or just walking away. I mean, that's probably like a slap in the face. Anyway, your attachment light is on though, and we have to figure out how to do all these things. It's not going to be perfect. We're going to have an answer for everything. We're going to have to talk with each other and figure out, okay, what's the best way to do some of these things when like the one about people talking for a long time. Attachment light is on when we have good eye contact. For instance, Marie, when you have these people, you're greeting people, if you have that good eye contact for even, a few seconds or even a minute or so, I mean, they're going to feel like you heard them. And so you can go on to someone else, just say, I'm a greeter or whatever. And so I think that will be a first thing that they will feel is that, yeah, you really care. And you give them that big hug. So that's good enough. So learning leaning in interestedly and actively listening, not sitting back and and that takes something. Maybe you're not interested in what they're saying. Well, it's going to take us to be able to ask Jesus for that strength to do that and to be interested in people, to have that attachment light on. Relaxed with a soft face. You don't want to be frowning at them or sneering at them, whatever. Open posture. You're not closed, whatever your posture might be to show them that you want to attach. Attentive, head nodding, conversational, engaging, attuning. So important, because then when you attune, you start to talk about their feelings. Just, it sounds like you're feeling this. It engages their feelings and it connects with them. And asking gentle, curious questions, not harsh questions or whatever. We need to learn what gentleness is if we don't. Focus on them, communicating verbally and with body language that you are glad to be with them. Warm, safe, non-judgmental. I think this is one of the biggest things that our neighbor came over, and he was with our group for a house church dinner. And he pulled me aside afterwards. He says, I didn't feel judged here. I thought, well, good. I didn't know you. But it was a positive thing that he was saying, that he felt welcomed. He felt like he was there, like he wasn't deficient, like Rich was saying. And he was part of the group. And so it was so important. Results, if our attachment light is on, we'll be communicating to others that you want to be part of their life and work toward getting to know them and have a relationship with them and to love them. They'll feel loved. This is all about how to orient yourself toward approaching and giving others a flawn joy. This is especially true for those who do not know Jesus. They haven't experienced the joy of Jesus, most likely, not in a consistent way. If you and I can work on having our attachment light on, we will interact with the lost. It will be inviting to them to be part of our lives and experience Jesus in us. And so that's the whole point of discipleship, is Jesus speaking through us to help people feel his and experience his love. So I want to just have a very short, see if you can have a discussion time with those around you. If you can do it in just a few minutes here, and answer one of these questions. What feelings do you have with this? What are you feeling about the attachment light on being on or off? Or what do you fear? What's the most difficult thing for you in keeping the attachment light on? How might you practice having your attachment light on more? So if you want to get into just people around you and just talk a little bit about this, if you can. So, and we'll just do it a couple minutes here. We're running short on time. There's sometimes when you may have boundaries for this attachment light. I mean, if you're with a villain or something, you may not want to attach the same, or if they're doing harm, or so it's not necessarily wrong to have a different kind of attachment light. It might be a detachment light, but for the normal person you're going to see, probably you can keep that attachment light on. But even if part of attaching could be to direct them someplace else or to someone that might be able to help them. But you need to protect your kids. You need to protect, there's predators around. You can't just, have attachment light that's going to endanger people. So there's some boundaries on that.
I have a question. What if your attachment light is off and somebody's trying to come share, and you just know, you've had a crappy day,
Yeah.
argued with your husband, and you're just not there.
Yeah.
What's a nice way to say that?
Okay.
Or, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not feel bad about it because you want to be giving, but it's just you're not in the mental space
Right.
to do it.
Right. What do you do when you're not in a mental space or emotional space to really have your attachment light on? And all of us will be at that place. It used to be that was sin, right? For you who's been around, if you don't have your attachment light on all the time, you're in sin. So I think there are places, I think we need to cultivate the more time we have it on. But I think if we're not in a good place, we should be able to just say, hey, can we talk another time? I don't have the capacity at this time to talk. And I think we need to help people understand that. Because different people have different capacities. I mean, I may be able to talk to these people for 2 hours, but Linda can maybe talk for 15 minutes and then she's out. Because it's just the way her system works. And so some people are going to be different.
So how do you answer Mandy's question? I mean, what do you?
Oh, I would just say, I don't have the capacity to do that right now. Could we talk a little bit later? Or say, I'm emotionally, I'm not able to talk about this right now. Whatever you're at, be real with that.
Could you say something like, I really want to be able to give you my best.
Yeah.
I'm feeling kind of drained. It's not really you, it's me.
Yeah.
All the time.
Yeah. You don't want to put a guilt trip on them. That's a good point. Yeah.
Reverse it on them. Well, that's what I mean about the right left. You give them a little bit of your day. This has been my day. And then they don't talk as much.
Well, but you don't want to shut them off either. So, okay. So, yeah, I think there's ways we can talk about it some more maybe, but that's a good question, Mandy. How do you, and Rich, do you have something?
Yeah, I think it's, comes back to being real with yourself and with other people. And when you're honest and you're truthful with them, and sometimes that's hard for us because we want to meet their needs or please them in a way, I'm gonna give you the attention, but we need to be real with ourselves too and say, I just can't do that.
Yeah, yeah. So Rich was saying we need to be real with ourselves and our needs and where we're at. We just can't always do that. It's interesting that Jesus wasn't always around people. So in some ways, he turned his attachment life off when he went up and prayed to God. He turned it on to God. But he just went away, and times of getting away. So I don't think it's wrong to do that. I think we have to pray to God and make sure our heart's in the right place. But if we're not able to help somebody, then it's better not to do it, probably. So, okay, we got 12 minutes. We're going to talk about the last one. Okay, and this is what I've talked about as well. And it's about joining Jesus and his Holy Spirit in what they are doing or what Jesus is doing. Okay, this is important. I'm still trying to learn this. How do I do this? How do I see what God is doing? I think I'm learning some things, but I want to try to maximize this, because if I can see where God is working in people, then I can turn my attachment light on more often to them. If I don't have the capacity to do it with everybody, which I don't, and sort of focus on trying to help where God is working, then my attachment light is on with God too, if that makes sense. Ask God to give you eyes to see where he is working in you and others. It's so important not just to look at others, but what's he doing in you? What's happening inside you? Do you feel drawn to talk to this person? Do you feel drawn to help this person? Do you feel like God is moving you in this direction? Also, you feel like you look at them and see how God is working in theirs. And we'll look at a few more things here. Slow down. There's a book called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. We've got 18 books. We might have us go through and read that sometime in our later part of this year. I don't know. We'll see. But it's the idea of slowing down. You can't have rushed relationships. They don't work very well. It's the idea of taking time, being with people. We live in a hurry society, and your capacity is really low to try to do any type of relationship just because we're all go, go, go. It's not as bad here in Grand Junction as in Denver, but it's still here. It's go, go, go. We have so many people over there in Denver that they get out of the car and they shoot somebody. Didn't like what they were doing. So go, go, go. Cultivate your relationships and flow in joy with God and with one another. I think if you do this, you're going to be able to see what the Spirit's doing more. Number one is the fruit of the Spirit being manifested. Now, if it's fruit of the Spirit, God can be moving people to have a heart for the lost, have a heart for the homeless, have the heart for... You can see some things that he is working in. But he's also working in you to involve you in a relationship in some way too, with maybe showing kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control, joy, love, peace, forbearance. Just more we're in touch with God, the more we'll be able to see that in other people, but also see it in ourselves. Conviction. One of the things I see that my neighbor has is conviction. He gets self-convicted about doing some things. He feels like I shared earlier. So something's working inside, unless he's just a guilty soul, but something's working inside to help him realize, well, maybe I hurt somebody. Maybe I shouldn't have said that. Maybe God didn't want me. So there's a sort of a connection there. So if there's a conviction, God is probably working in there. The Bible says, and when he comes, talking about the Holy Spirit, he will convict the world concerning sin, righteousness, and judgment. And so look for those things that might be related to that. Expression of feelings. That's why it's so important to listen. I really appreciate what Reggie said. Our society doesn't listen, by and large. And people want to feel heard. And so if somebody's expressing their feelings, probably the best thing to do is just listen to them. But God may be working because they're going through a trial in their lives. And you could be how God's going to reach them. Number 4 is people talking about spiritual and relational things. It's good to hear that. And then talk about those relationships. Maybe someone had a death in their family. Maybe there's a rift in a relationship between a wife and a husband, or maybe between kids. You know, the children are fighting, or they're someone else in school. You know, there's something that's going on. There's stress. When there's stress, people look for something to solve that stress, and God can help with that. Maybe working. I'm not saying He's working in some way, but reception of you in their lives. If you remember, Jesus sent out the 2 by 2 in Luke 10, and they went out and He said, go to all these houses and find out, if they will accept you, then stay in that house. If they don't, shake the dust off your feet and go on. So there's something to say about people that receive you, and they want to connect with your attachment light. Okay, and so be aware of that. It could be that you're the one that God is trying to bring in for them to get to know Him and be saved. Change or turning toward our repentance. If you see somebody repenting of things, they have a heart that they know there's right and wrong. There's something that God is working within them to change. So those are just some of the things you might look at. But I'd like for you to now, we've got just a few minutes, but I'd like for you maybe to, in the same groups, I'll tell you what, let's just pray, because we're going to run out of time here, but let's not divide up into groups. Let's just take a moment here and see if God puts anybody on your heart that any of these might fit, that you might be said God working. So let's just take a minute here and just ask God if He has someone that He might put on your heart that would fit some of these where He's working. Okay, without naming names, does anyone want to share? Anyone that might have been put on their heart? That you might see God working in? This might become a skill for us too.
Yeah, I've kind of got 2.
Okay.
One is a guy that my dude Reggie and I are making some Bible studies with currently.
Okay.
He's just been through some hard things in his life that, people go through tragedy and hardship. It's like they either run away from God or they run towards God. It's running towards God, as you see.
Okay.
It's like, even when him and I sat down the first time to get coffee, you can tell God had already been working in his heart.
Yeah.
He'd already been thinking about all this stuff.
Okay.
And just go, that wasn't me. God's already been
Yeah.
the soil.
Yeah. Okay. So the person that you are studying the Bible with that had really, I'm trying to repeat it here, would really, there you saw some things happening even before you started studying the Bible that is showing that God was working and preparing for that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's great.
Even before we started studying.
Even before you start studying. Rich?
Yeah, there's a man that I've been reaching out to who's been in church a few times. He really is responsible.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a guy Rich and I've been reaching out to that came to church a few times, and he's on and off a little bit. But I think that we saw some things in there that he seemed like God is working in his heart just by our discussion with him and getting together with him. So, yeah. Okay. Well, I want you to think about those, pray about those things. Allow God to be leading you in these things, because there may be someone that He wants you to talk to. Step number 3 is seek others. Practice flaw and joy with them, and then you can share the gospel. The Bible does say to go. Okay, it's a command there. It takes on a command force, I believe, because of the commanding verb, make disciples. We can talk about that a little bit later, why we decided that, and we did some special Greek stuff in my class, so we can talk about that. Anyway, seek to interact and bring joy to others and new people. So go. Use flan with them. Use joy with them. And see how they respond. Plan to meet new people, and implement the heart skills of flan joy, ministering to them. I want you to consider flan joy as a ministry. You're ministering Jesus to the world by using some of these skills. A ministry of compassion. Seek others, minister with flan joy, and share the gospel of Jesus. It's an open door to do that, usually when people respond to flan joy. That's what discipleship is all about, is to prepare us to be like Christ, increasing our EQ, to minister to Jesus and to others so they can experience Jesus. Practice flan joy, the new, safe, life-giving, I think, joy-filled, loving discipleship. So I'd like for us to, if somebody would like to close in a prayer, praying for us to be able to reach out to the world and to everybody in Grand Junction and surrounding areas. Any volunteers to pray? We might be a blessing to the world out there. Does anybody want to pray?
Sure.
Okay.
Dear Heavenly Father, help us spread joy with fun, and help us to be able to tune with each other in the church well. And please let's have a safe communion. In Jesus' name.
Amen.
Amen.
Thank you all for being here. That's all I had.
Thanks, man.
Went a little longer than I thought, but we made it. Thank you. I think you're on a cutting edge of doing something even greater than might have been done in the past. So.